Dinner reservation. Flowers ordered. But now, outside room 1214, hand frozen mid-knock, Trent was learning the cruelest lesson. Sometimes the surprises we plan for others pale in comparison to the ones waiting for us. The Uber dropped Trent at the Pinnacle Grand Hotel's entrance at 7:30 p.m. He dozed on the flight, dreaming about Naomi's surprised face, and now adrenaline buzzed through him as he stepped into the lobby. The place was elegant, all polished marble and contemporary art, businesspeople in blazers clustered around the bar, conference lanyards still hanging from their necks. He approached the front desk where a young clerk, Marcus, according to his name tag, looked up with a professional smile. "Checking in, sir? Actually, I'm here to surprise my wife. She's already checked in. Naomi Maxwell, room 1214. Marcus's smile flickered. His fingers moved across the keyboard, slower than necessary. He glanced at the screen, then at Trent, then back at the screen. Something uncomfortable passed across his face. "Mr. Maxwell." He paused. "There's another guest registered to room 1214. The words didn't land immediately. Trent's excitement stumbled, caught itself. "Oh, probably just a colleague. Conference thing, you know. Sharing to save costs." Marcus nodded, but his eyes said something else. "Of course, sir. Enjoy your evening." Trent headed to the elevators, telling himself it meant nothing. Conference budgets were tight. People shared suites all the time. The elevator climbed, his reflection staring back at him in the polished brass, brown leather bag over his shoulder, the bouquet confirmation on his phone, dinner reservation for two. 8th floor. The hallway stretched ahead, quiet and carpeted in subtle gray, modern sconces casting warm light that somehow felt cold. He walked slowly, counting door numbers. 1206, 1208, 1210, 1212. He raised his hand to knock. His knuckles were inches from the wood when he heard it. Sounds. Unmistakable sounds. His brain short-circuited, scrambling for alternative explanations. TV. Had to be the TV. People watched movies in hotel rooms. That's all this was. But then he heard it clearly, his wife's laugh. Breathy and intimate, the way she used to laugh with him years ago, before work consumed her, before late nights and business trips became routine. He'd almost forgotten that laugh existed. His hand dropped. His whole body turned to ice. For what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Trent stood paralyzed. His vision narrowed to a tunnel. His heart hammered so violently he could hear it in his ears. Sweat broke across his forehead despite the air conditioning. He should leave. His feet wouldn't move. He should break down the door. His hands were shaking too violently. Then the elevator dinged down the hall. A tall man emerged, late 30s, black, athletic build, designer suit that probably cost more than Trent's monthly salary. He carried a champagne bottle in one hand, roses in the other. Wedding ring visible even from this distance. The man walked with the confidence of someone who belonged here, who had every right to be here. He walked directly toward 1214. Trent watched, frozen, as the man used a keycard. The door opened a crack and Naomi's voice floated out, bright and delighted. "Finally! I thought you got lost." The man entered. The door closed. Trent stood there, overnight bag sliding off his shoulder, hitting the carpet with a soft thud. The restaurant reservation confirmation glowed on his phone screen. 8 p.m. at Bourbon and Bone. Table for two. Reality didn't shatter all at once. It splintered, cracks spreading through everything he thought he knew, everything he believed about his life, his marriage, his wife. His legs finally moved, carrying him toward the ice machine alcove at the end of the hall. He barely made it before they gave out completely. Trent collapsed against the ice machine, sliding down to sit on the floor. His head dropped into his hands. Waves of nausea rolled through him. He couldn't think, couldn't process. 5 minutes ago, he'd been excited about surprising his wife. Now his entire reality had been rewritten. How long had this been going on? Who was that man? How many business trips were actually affairs? The questions came fast, assault after assault, but answers didn't matter because they all led to the same devastating conclusion. His marriage was a lie. A door opened nearby. A woman emerged, mid-30s, natural hair, kind eyes that immediately recognized distress when she saw him sitting there. "Hey, are you okay?" Trent looked up. His face was wet. He hadn't realized he was crying. He opened his mouth to say he was fine, but what came out was, "My wife is in that room with another man." The woman didn't flinch, didn't offer empty platitudes. She sat down beside him on the carpet without hesitation. "I'm Sienna," she said. "Sienna James." She told him her own story. 3 years ago, similar evidence, similar devastation. She'd confronted her husband immediately, made a scene in rage. It weakened her position in the divorce, made her look unstable, gave him ammunition. "I'm not saying don't feel what you're feeling," Sienna said gently. "Feel it all. But Trent, what you do in the next 12 to 24 hours will define the next year of your life. Don't confront them tonight. Not in rage. Document everything first. Protect yourself legally. Think strategy, not emotion." Her words cut through the fog. Trent's science teacher brain, analytical, methodical, trained to solve problems systematically, began to engage. Sienna helped him stand, walked him back to the front desk. He booked his own room, charged it to his personal card. Room 1127. Different floor. Different reality. In his room, he ordered food he couldn't eat. Sat on the bed with his laptop open. Started documenting. Timeline of Naomi's trips. Conference dates. Cities. Hotels. Dates she'd claimed late work nights but hadn't come home until after midnight. Credit card statements. He pulled them up, stomach churning, showing expensive dinners for two, hotel room charges, purchases he didn't recognize. He screenshotted text messages. The innocent ones that now looked sinister. "Conference running late. Don't wait up. Julian thinks I should stay an extra day for networking. Miss you, babe." He reviewed their joint bank accounts, noting withdrawals, transfers, expenses that didn't match her explanations. He researched Chicago divorce attorneys, reading reviews, looking for specialists in infidelity cases. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. 1 a.m. 2 a.m. He hadn't slept but wasn't tired. Rage had crystallized into something colder, sharper, more focused. Not the hot, destructive anger that would make him kick down doors and make scenes. This was different. This was determination. By morning, he'd have more than feelings. He'd have a case. He'd have evidence. And evidence was power. Morning came gray and cold through the hotel window. Trent had slept maybe 90 minutes, his dreams fractured by the sound of Naomi's laugh, the image of that man entering her room with champagne and roses. He showered, dressed in fresh clothes, looked at himself in the mirror. Eyes red-rimmed and hollow, face drawn, but his jaw was set. He looked like someone who'd been through war and decided to fight back. At 7:45 a.m., he positioned himself on the hotel restaurant's outdoor terrace. Ordered coffee he didn't drink. Pretended to read on his tablet while his phone sat propped against his water glass, recording angle perfect, camera already open. His table had clear sight lines to all entrances. At 8:32 a.m., they appeared. Naomi wore a coral blazer he'd helped her pick out last month at Nordstrom. Professional. Polished. Her Toomey briefcase, The one her company gave her for exceeding targets, swung at her side. The man beside her wore a navy suit and aviator sunglasses. Trent had searched her work contacts during the night. Julian Westbrook, VP of Operations. Her supervisor. The mentor she always talked about. They were laughing. Comfortable. The body language wasn't colleagues discussing quarterly projections. This was intimacy. Trent's phone recorded everything. They sat at a corner table. He adjusted the angle slightly, captured their conversation. Couldn't hear the words but didn't need to. Julian's hand rested on Naomi's thigh under the table. She leaned in, kissed his cheek. They talked quietly about keeping things quiet until the Seattle opening, and dealing with Corinne's suspicions. Corinne, Julian's wife. Trent's jaw clenched, but his hands stayed steady. 8 minutes, 47 seconds of video. Timestamps. Location data. Undeniable. After they left for conference sessions, Trent made his move. He found them in the hallway outside conference room B. Took a breath. Stepped forward. Naomi. His voice was calm. Almost frighteningly calm. She turned. Her face went white in half a second. Trent? What? How? Julian Westbrook, right? Trent extended his hand to the man, who reflexively shook it, confused. Trent Maxwell. Naomi's husband. Julian's expression shifted through confusion to realization to panic in real time. We need to talk. Now. Both of you. Trent didn't wait for agreement. Room 1214. Last night. This morning's breakfast. All documented. He held up his phone, showed the video thumbnail. I'm filing for divorce on Monday, Naomi. Adultery with irrefutable evidence. Julian, your wife Corinne will receive copies of everything. And Apex Corporate will receive a detailed complaint about a VP abusing his position with a direct report. You'll both hear from lawyers. Don't contact me again. Naomi tried to speak. Trent, wait, let me explain. But he was already walking away. The power dynamic had completely shifted. He wasn't the victim stumbling in the hallway anymore. He was in control. He walked out of the hotel into bright November Nashville morning. Left his rental car. Took an Uber straight to the airport. Changed his return flight to the next available departure. By 2 p.m., he was wheels up, heading back to Chicago with evidence that would end his marriage and potentially destroy 2 careers. He stared out the airplane window as Nashville disappeared below, feeling numb but strangely, impossibly calm. The worst had already happened. Now came the reckoning. Monday morning, Trent called in sick for the first time in 3 years. He spent the day methodically executing his plan from the kitchen table, still wearing his Roosevelt Middle School sweatshirt, coffee growing cold beside his laptop. First call, Reina Torres, a divorce attorney a colleague had recommended after his own messy separation. She reviewed Trent's documentation during their video consultation, nodding slowly as he walked through the evidence. Videos, photos, timestamps, financial records. Mr. Maxwell, I'll be honest. Most clients come to me as emotional wrecks with no proof. You've built an airtight case. Adultery with documented evidence in Illinois gives us significant leverage. They discussed strategy. File quickly. Request favorable asset division. Avoid prolonged litigation. Trent signed the retainer agreement that afternoon. Papers would be filed by Wednesday. Second call was harder. He'd found Corinne Westbrook's information through Julian's LinkedIn. She worked as an art gallery curator. Her profile filled with exhibitions and charity galas, smiling photos with 2 young daughters. His hands shook as he dialed. Mrs. Westbrook, you don't know me, but I need to tell you something about your husband Julian. Silence. Then weary. What happened now? That weariness told him everything. Corinne had suspected affairs before. Julian had explained them away, gaslight her, called her paranoid. But when Trent shared the video evidence, her denial crumbled. They talked for over an hour. She revealed Julian's pattern: attention to rising female employees, mentorship that crossed boundaries, late nights at the office, unexplained expenses. She'd thought he'd changed after the last situation 2 years ago. Thought they'd worked through it in couples therapy. Thought their marriage was healing. They compared notes, timelines. Corinne's suspicions matched perfectly with Naomi's business trips. "Thank you for telling me," she said finally, her voice thick. "This time I'm done." Third action: corporate complaint. Trent logged into Apex Digital Solutions' ethics reporting portal. Filed a detailed complaint citing Julian Westbrook, VP of Operations, engaged in sexual relationship with direct report Naomi Maxwell, Senior Marketing Director. Power dynamic abuse. Potential pattern behavior. He attached documentation, provided timeline, offered to make himself available as witness. Within 48 hours, he received confirmation. Complaint received. Investigation initiated. Legal and HR departments involved. Corporate counsel Marcus Webb called him personally. "Mr. Maxwell, we take these allegations very seriously. Given the power dynamic and the evidence you've provided, we're beginning immediate investigation." A pause. "I need to ask, are you aware of any other situations involving Mr. Westbrook?" Trent wasn't. But that question told him everything. Apex already suspected Julian had done this before. He sat in his silent apartment afterward, Naomi's stuff still everywhere, her coffee mug in the sink, her shoes by the door, her scarf draped over the couch. The life they'd built together, now evidence of a lie. What had started as personal devastation was becoming something larger. He wasn't just protecting himself anymore. He was pulling on a thread that might unravel an entire system of abuse. And he wouldn't stop pulling until it all came undone. The investigation moved fast. Apex's legal team, acutely aware of liability exposure in the current climate, brought in an external firm specializing in workplace misconduct. They began interviewing current and former employees, following threads Trent's complaint had exposed. Within a week, they found Nia Robinson. Nia had left Apex 18 months ago under mutual separation, corporate code for paid to go quietly. She'd been a junior account coordinator, 26 years old, ambitious and talented. Julian became her supervisor. It started with mentorship, professional guidance, lunch meetings that turned personal. He told her she had so much potential if she played the game right. Then came pressure, drinks after work, dinners that felt like dates, direct propositions with implied promises of promotion. When Nia tried to end it, to keep things professional, Julian turned vindictive. Poor performance reviews appeared from nowhere. Prime projects were reassigned. Other colleagues started treating her differently. Later, she realized Julian had spread rumors about her mental instability. Cornered, Nia had accepted the settlement. $45,000. Signed NDA. Neutral reference. Quiet departure. She'd thought she was alone, that no one would believe her word against a VP. But Trent's complaint and the official investigation gave her permission to finally speak. Trent and Corinne, now in regular contact as reluctant allies in this mess, helped connect Nia with employment attorneys specializing in invalidating NDAs related to harassment. As her story emerged in depositions, 2 more women contacted the investigation team. Keisha Martinez. 3 years ago. Same pattern: mentorship, personal attention, pressure, resistance, retaliation, quiet settlement. $38,000 and an NDA. Adriana Chen. 5 years ago, when Julian was still a director instead of VP. Identical pattern. $30,000. Forced resignation. Each woman had thought she was alone. Each had signed away her voice. Each had been told her career would be destroyed if she spoke. The pattern was undeniable, systematic, calculated. Julian Westbrook had been doing this for at least 6 years, possibly longer. And Apex had been paying settlements, having women sign NDAs, protecting their VP while silencing his victims. Trent met with Nia via Zoom. She was working at a competitor firm now, slowly rebuilding her career, her confidence still fragile but returning. "I thought I was crazy," she told him, tears streaming down her face. "He made me feel like I'd invited it, like I'd misread everything. Like it was my fault." She wiped her eyes. "Thank you for speaking up. You gave me my voice back when I thought it was gone forever." Trent realized then that what he'd discovered in that Nashville hotel room wasn't just about his marriage. It was about a predatory pattern protected by corporate power, enabled by silence, perpetuated by fear. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was accountability. And accountability, he was learning, was far more powerful than revenge ever could be. The internal investigation report landed on CEO Miranda Okafor's desk like a bomb. VP Julian Westbrook had engaged in a pattern of sexual harassment spanning 6+ years, involving at minimum 5 employees, systematically abusing his position of power. The company had paid settlements totaling $113,000 to silence victims through NDAs. The legal exposure was catastrophic. Those NDAs likely wouldn't hold under current EEOC scrutiny. If this became public, stock prices would tank, client relationships would fracture, the SEC would have questions about disclosure. The board convened an emergency session. The decision was swift and brutal. Julian Westbrook was terminated immediately for gross violations of ethics policy, code of conduct, and abuse of position. No severance. No negotiation. Security escorted him from the building Friday morning at 9 a.m., credentials revoked, laptop and phone confiscated, office cleared within the hour. Word spread through the company within minutes, through the industry by end of day. The tech and marketing world was interconnected. Everyone knew someone at Apex. Julian's professional reputation was destroyed. He was effectively blacklisted from VP roles anywhere reputable. Naomi faced her own reckoning. The investigation revealed she'd violated company policy regarding relationships with supervisors, knew Julian was married, and failed to disclose conflicts of interest affecting her assignments and reviews. Apex gave her a stark choice: resign with a neutral reference, or be terminated for cause with a full record. She chose resignation but was forced to accept a transfer to their struggling Seattle office as a senior coordinator, 2 levels down from her current position. Career suicide disguised as relocation. Her dreams of VP were dead. Trent's divorce proceeded in parallel. Naomi, knowing the evidence was incontestable, didn't fight. They agreed on terms. Condo sold, equity split 60-40 in his favor due to adultery. He kept his pension intact, clean financial break. The divorce was finalized in 89 days, one of the fastest in Illinois. Through a mutual friend, Trent heard she was living in a small Capitol Hill apartment, working long hours trying to rebuild her reputation, single, attending therapy twice a week. Julian's life imploded more comprehensively. Corinne filed for divorce with Trent's evidence and depositions from the investigation. She sought primary custody of their daughters, ages 7 and 9, and maximum financial settlement. Illinois courts ruled in her favor. Julian got supervised visitation only, paid substantial child support and alimony, lost the house. His Mercedes was returned to the leasing company. His luxury Lincoln Park condo sold at a loss. Court documents revealed financial deceptions, secret apartment rental near Apex's office for affairs, gifts charged to credit cards, expensive dinners, all hidden from his wife. His Wharton MBA network distanced themselves. Former colleagues wouldn't return calls. He was toxic, unemployable at his previous level. The divorce decree arrived in Trent's mail on a gray afternoon. He sat alone in his apartment holding the paper that legally ended his marriage, expecting to feel triumph or vindication. Instead, he felt exhausted. And strangely, impossibly, a little bit free. The chains of deception had been cut. The lies had been exposed. Justice, imperfect but real, had been served. Now came the harder work, learning to live in the aftermath, to rebuild not just his circumstances but himself. Nia Robinson, Keisha Martinez, Adriana Chen, and 2 additional women filed a joint class action lawsuit against Apex Digital Solutions. The allegations were devastating, fostering a hostile work environment, enabling a known predator in leadership, using NDAs to silence harassment victims, violating EEOC guidelines, creating a culture of fear. The case attracted immediate media attention. The Chicago Tribune ran a feature, Pattern of Harassment at Tech Firm, How NDAs Silenced Women for Years. Industry publications picked it up. Local news stations interviewed employment law experts about NDA enforceability, corporate liability, power dynamics in the tech sector. Julian's name appeared in every article. His pattern, his abuse, his downfall. His LinkedIn profile went dark. His social media fell silent. Former colleagues publicly distanced themselves. His personal life continued disintegrating. Corinne's divorce moved through brutal public depositions. Financial forensics revealed he'd spent approximately $47,000 of marital funds on affairs over 3 years. The secret apartment, gifts, expensive dinners, all hidden. The final settlement was ruthless. Corinne got the house, primary custody, $4,200 monthly child support, substantial alimony. Julian got supervised visitation every other weekend at a court-monitored facility, his damaged reputation, and crushing financial obligations. He moved to a modest 1-bedroom in South Loop, found work as an independent marketing consultant making a fraction of his former salary. His daughters barely knew him. Court-appointed therapists noted they showed anxiety around him. Trent watched from a distance, receiving periodic updates through Corinne. When he heard about Julian's fall, from $185,000 VP to $60,000 contractor, from luxury lifestyle to studio apartment, from father to supervised visitor, he felt something complex. Not joy, but a sense of rightness. Revenge would have felt hollow. This felt like justice. He participated in depositions for the class action suit, telling his story with clear, measured testimony. The attorney complimented him afterward. Your documentation and willingness to speak up changed everything. These women wouldn't have won without you breaking the silence. The lawsuit eventually settled. Apex agreed to pay $3.8 million to the 5 women, with Nia receiving the largest share due to severity and being the earliest complaint. The company committed to comprehensive policy overhaul, independent HR oversight, mandatory training, cultural audit by external firms, and abolishment of forced arbitration clauses for harassment claims. More importantly, they issued a public apology acknowledging their failures to protect employees. It wasn't enough. Justice never fully heals wounds. But it was something real, tangible, systemic. A card arrived in Trent's mail from Nia. Inside, her handwriting. Because you had the courage to speak up when you had nothing to gain personally, I found my courage again. You protected women you'll never meet. Thank you for refusing to stay silent. You're a good man, Trent Maxwell. He kept that card on his desk, a reminder that suffering can produce meaning if you let it. With the divorce finalized and lawsuits settled, Trent focused on rebuilding his life from the ruins. The Chicago condo sold at market value, providing capital for a fresh start. He found a two-bedroom apartment in Logan Square, a neighborhood he and Naomi had always talked about but never moved to. This space was his alone. No compromise paint colors. No shared furniture carrying memories. He decorated with his actual taste. Vintage Cubs posters, framed Field Museum photos, plants he actually watered. The second bedroom became a reading room filled with science books, astronomy charts, a telescope by the window. Naomi's ghost didn't live here. Physical transformation followed emotional work. He joined Tidal Boxing Club in Wicker Park, taking morning classes before school. Boxing provided a healthy outlet for residual anger and complicated feelings that still surfaced. He dropped 15 pounds from strength training, got physically stronger as he healed emotionally. He started teaching himself to cook beyond bachelor basics, taking an evening class at Kendall College. He met diverse people with no connection to his old life, relearned joy in small accomplishments. Perfectly seared scallops, properly emulsified hollandaise. His teaching evolved. Students noticed the change. He was more present, more patient, somehow more real. He created a new curriculum unit on scientific ethics and moral decision-making. Parent-teacher conferences revealed the impact. My daughter says Mr. Maxwell changed her perspective on what it means to be strong. Therapy continued weekly with Dr. Keisha Okoye, a brilliant psychologist specializing in trauma recovery. She helped him process complex layers: grief for the marriage lost, anger at betrayal, fear of future vulnerability, anxiety about trusting again. Trust isn't something you give blindly or withhold completely, Dr. Okoye told him during one session. It's something people earn through consistent demonstration of character. You can be wisely cautious without being permanently closed. After 8 months, Trent cautiously entered the dating world again. Coffee dates through apps. Honest conversations about his past without oversharing. He met Cameron Edwards, a child psychologist, through a mutual friend at a school fundraiser. She was 33, warm, direct, and appreciated that he'd done the work on himself. Their relationship developed slowly. Coffee became dinners, dinners became weekend hikes. Hikes became genuine partnership built on actual communication and earned trust. Cameron knew his story, respected his journey, didn't try to fix him or rush his healing. I don't need you to be over it, she told him during a vulnerable late-night conversation. I need you to be honest about where you are. One Sunday, Trent hosted dinner at his apartment. New friends, teaching colleagues, Cameron, Corinne. Laughter filled his space. People who knew his story but didn't define him by it. He looked around the table and realized this was what rebuilding looked like. Not erasing the past, but creating a new present where pain wasn't the only story. Late spring in Chicago, almost a year since Nashville. Trent sat on his apartment balcony on a Saturday evening in early June, temperature perfect, city lights beginning to glow as the sun set over the skyline. He was grading science fair projects, sipping wine Cameron had brought from a vineyard they'd visited last weekend, jazz playing softly from a speaker. His phone buzzed. Text from a mutual friend. Thought you should know, Naomi's engaged. Guy she met in Seattle, works in nonprofit. She seems different, quieter. Says she's trying to become someone she can respect. Trent read it twice, waiting for the feeling to hit. Anger, jealousy, betrayal all over again? Nothing. Maybe slight curiosity, mostly indifference. He genuinely hoped she was doing the work, becoming a better person. But it didn't affect him anymore. She was a chapter that had closed. He texted back. Good for her. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. Another text from Corinne. Update on Julian if you want it. Working as contractor, makes maybe $60K now. Studio apartment. Sees girls twice a month supervised. Elena doesn't want to go anymore. Corinne is thriving, back in school, dating someone healthy. Trent sent a thumbs-up emoji. Julian's complete fall, from high-powered VP to struggling contractor, from father to supervised visitor, was done. But Trent felt no satisfaction in the destruction. Just neutrality. Julian had faced natural consequences. The system had worked, slowly and imperfectly, but it had worked. Justice and accountability had coexisted. Most importantly, other women had been protected. That mattered more than any personal vindication. His phone buzzed again. Cameron, still on for dinner at 8? Bringing surprise. He smiled, texted confirmation. Life wasn't perfect, but it was his again. Authentic. Hard-won. Built on actual foundation. He reflected on that November evening in Nashville, standing frozen outside room 1214, world-shattering, faced with an impossible choice: rage or strategy, destruction or accountability. In that moment, he could have kicked down the door, confronted them violently, let pain drive him to actions he'd regret. Instead, he'd chosen evidence. Strategy. Thinking beyond immediate emotion. And that choice had changed everything. Not just the legal outcome, but who he'd remained through the crisis. He thought about Nia, Keisha, Adriana, women who'd found their voices because he'd spoken up. About systemic changes at Apex that might protect future employees. About his students learning that integrity under pressure was possible. His pain had served a purpose beyond personal vindication. That was the real victory. Not that Julian and Naomi had suffered consequences, but that the suffering had produced meaning. Protected others. Created change. Hadn't poisoned him into becoming bitter or closed. Dr. Okoye's words echoed, "Betrayal gives you a choice. You can let it define you or refine you. Often, that choice happens in a single moment. Not the moment of betrayal, but the moment after, when you decide how to respond." Trent had chosen refinement. Wisdom. Accountability over revenge, strategy over emotion, healing over bitterness, growth over destruction. Cameron arrived at 7:45, carrying a bag from his favorite Ethiopian restaurant and a small wrapped box. "Early birthday present," she explained. Inside, a vintage brass telescope compass, inscription on the side reading, "Not all who wander are lost, but the wise ones bring evidence." He laughed, pulled her close. "How do you always know exactly what I need?" "Because you do the work," she said simply. "You don't hide who you are or what you've been through. That's rare." They ate dinner on the balcony, talking about her week at the clinic, his upcoming summer curriculum project, plans to visit her family in Michigan for the 4th of July. Conversation flowed easily, punctuated by comfortable silences. This was what healthy looked like, not the absence of a difficult past, but the presence of genuine connection built on honesty. After Cameron left around 10, Trent stood at the balcony railing, looking out at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere in this city, Naomi had moved on. Somewhere, Julian faced his consequences. Somewhere, Nia and other survivors were rebuilding, healing at their own pace. And here, in Logan Square, Trent Maxwell, 32 years old, middle school science teacher, betrayed husband turned survivor turned advocate, felt something he hadn't thought possible a year ago. Peace. Not happiness exactly. Not yet. But peace. Acceptance. Hard-won wisdom that betrayal doesn't have to destroy you if you don't let it. That character isn't measured by what happens to you, but by how you respond. That justice and healing can coexist. That you can be scarred and still whole. He went back inside, cleaned up dinner dishes, prepared for Sunday morning boxing class, set out materials for the school week. Ordinary activities of an ordinary evening in an extraordinary life rebuilt from ruins. The real ending wasn't dramatic confrontation or triumphant revenge. It was this quiet evening, clean conscience, genuine connections, life moving forward. How you respond to betrayal defines who you are. You can let it make you cruel, bitter, closed. Or you can let it make you careful, wiser, stronger. The choice is always yours. Trent had chosen wisely. And in the end, that mattered more than any revenge ever could. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between emotion and strategy? How did you handle it? And if you want more stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to Choice Story for more powerful narratives about resilience, accountability, and the choices that define us. Your next unforgettable story is just a click away. Thanks for being here.